All right. This was a big story. Everybody freaked out about this. Tim Pool, Timmy Pool, the beanie, the man himself, the beanie himself. Apparently, there was a leak about Tim Pool selling Timcast and the entire operation to the dreaded, and I say dreaded in all sincerity, dreaded Daily Wire. And if you like the Daily Wire, congratulations, you're one of the few people that do. Effective January 1st. Sources confirmed to Media Right News. Now, watching different people today, like Jeremy from the Quartering and others, try to make sense out of this, it sounds like it's the Daily Wire employees that are leaking this stuff and that are sniffing around, trying to figure out what's going on. Is this in relation? It's not any way, shape, or form ironic or interesting or coincidental that Brett Cooper leaves the Daily Wire, and now people are like, oh, well, Timcast is going to get bought by the Daily Wire, and they're going to bring it in. Okay, whatever. So Tim Pool, this is the people that broke it last night. Tim Pool is reportedly selling his entire Timcast operations to the Daily Wire effective January 1st. One source told Media Right News that a Daily Wire employee has been questioning Timcast employees to determine whether they'll be terminated, while a second said it's unclear which employees would be retained in their positions. They spoke on the condition of anonymity, because I can't say it and everybody else can. I don't know. How do you say it? I don't know. Whatever. It is also understood Pool is moving to Nashville, and any employee retained will need to relocate after many were required to move to West Virginia. Pool recently commented on Daily Wire's split with Brett Cooper, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes in and everybody's wildly speculating, oh, what's this going on? Oh, my goodness, this is crazy. It's actually not that crazy. Companies get bought and sold all the time, especially companies you didn't think that would be bought or sold. And having worked for an alternative media company and currently being on my own, gives me more of a unique sense than most about this situation. And the same way I talked about with Brett Cooper beforehand, there is a double-edged sword when you get into this space, when you get in here. One last thing before I get into my waxing soliloquy. Apparently, this has been a big deal. Elijah Schaefer said this has been known about for months. Everybody, but, it's just public today because some of his staff appear to have leaked it. Apparently everybody knows that Tim is selling the Daily Wire except, the public. Everybody in that incestual right-wing alternative sphere. Don't get it twisted. The people in that circle, they're very incestuous and they don't want anybody else in it. They don't. It's funny. They were shut out from the legacy media, so they created their own sphere and bubble, and now they won't let anybody into that one unless you bend the knee and beg them, which I never will. But being under a media company where I first started, and I've already covered all this with Brett Cooper, I don't want to rehash that, and now being out on my own, there's a double-edged sword in alternative media. You have the freedom versus security aspect that Tim has been dealing with since he's been in this space for almost 20 years. The freedom to create your own content, to talk about what you want, to make your own hours, to be financially independent, versus the security of, hey, am I going to get demonetized? Is the show going to continue forever? And all this, how am I going to work this with a family? And all these other kinds of things. There's three things, and the freedom versus security I'm going to come back to in a minute. There's three things that I have isolated in my own view based on my experiences that I can bring to the table here. The first one is, and this is not breaking any news, he announced that he's having a baby soon. And congratulations to Tim. He's having a family, and that's great. But he constantly talks about the 16-hour days he does and all the managerial things that he does and how he doesn't like them. He's had breakdowns on streams. He's fired people over it. It's different from, hey, I just make videos, to, my goodness, now I'm responsible for 20, 30, 40 people and multiple different things. He sells coffee and skateboards and all this other kind of stuff. Great for him. And I'll talk about that more in a second. It's different from, hey, I just make videos all day, to now I have employees and HR and employee problems and all this other kind of nonsense. I'm working 16-hour days and I got a girlfriend. Now I got a kid. If he does sell to the Daily Wire, he offloads all that managerial stuff. He just gives it to them. You guys with your HR department and your lawyers and all your other stuff, you just deal with it. I don't have to deal with it anymore, and that's fantastic for me. I can go back to making videos. I don't have to work 16-hour days. I'll show up. I'll do my show. I'll go home. And then he can spend more time. Maybe he doesn't want to spend 16 hours a day doing this stuff when he has a baby. Maybe he wants to spend more time with his kid. And that's a very admirable thing to think about in that regard. Now, of course, I'm ascribing all these things. We don't know if this is even true, but it could be. So he also has the ability, because he's worked his tail off to become one of the bigger dogs in the space, to be able to create the hours of saying like, hey, I just want to do a show and spend time with my family. He's earned that right because he's put in the work. The second thought, and this is probably the most important one being in this space, what's your plan in 10 to 15 years? And I think a lot of people who get into this space don't ever ask themselves that question. What's the long-term play with this type of career, job, whatever you want to call it, the people that make money off it? I certainly don't. For me, it's fortunate to not be, and it sounds douchey because I appreciate every single person that's watching, to not be as successful as Tim or something like that. Because if this thing bombs after a year and it doesn't seem like it can go anywhere, I can just walk from it. Be like, all right, I tried. It was my last chance, my last try. Didn't work. Okay. I have other jobs and other things. Like, I do this for fun. Ironically enough, I work 30, 35 hours a week doing something else. And then this is everything I do for this is all on my own. And so I appreciate every single one of you guys watching, and gals. I don't want to misgender. But for people that are successful, it almost becomes a curse. What are you going to do in 10 years? What happens when this medium becomes outdated? Because in technology, things come rapidly and then they go away just as quickly. Can you really count, if you're 30, 40, even in your early 50s, on doing this for an extended period of time? Do you want to? I don't think a lot of people think of that. I obviously have. If I was given the opportunity to work at a place, like, I would never work for the Daily Wire, but if a news outlet wanted me to work for them, I would absolutely work for them again, because I love it. I enjoyed it. And I think I'm actually particularly good at it. But there are people that, what is your long-term goal? Are you going to do this? And I think that's a reason why they start like skateboarding companies and coffee companies and all these other things, because it's their off-ramp. For a lot of podcasters, like a Dr. Taylor Marshall, if he stops live streaming or podcasting tomorrow, he has his career as being a advanced educationally, and he has his books. So, what's your off ramp with something like this? And I think if Tim does sell to the Daily Wire, he can pretty much make that a legacy play. Timcast and all that stuff will be around after he's gone. Right now, with him running the ship, if he leaves, essentially the Daily Wire dies with him, or it dies as soon as he leaves. And I think a lot of channels, based off of a talent, whoever it is, once that talent leaves, the show kind of just dies, and the network kind of just dies, because people are and the Daily Wire is starting to find this out with Brett Cooper. People are attached to the host. They're not attached to the show. They're attached to the host. And that's why I was saying at the beginning, I think it's kind of funny that these people in media still treat it like, oh, everybody's going to take 2 weeks off. The people that watch your show are the people who are attached to you. They don't care about the show. And that's why, like, when I would guest host for a radio host, nobody would tune in for me. Even if they're like, hey, I think you're funny and all this, they want to hear the talent. They want to hear the person that they hear every single morning or every single afternoon. And so for Tim, I think it's a legacy play. Hey, man, I can sell to the Daily Wire. I can do my show for as long as I want, and then I can leave, and it'll always be stored, archived, whatever it is, within the Daily Wire. So I think that's a legacy play. And third, it's the freedom versus security argument. Tim is, he's fine. He's a multi-millionaire. He has his things set up and his things taken care of. But the freedom versus security, he has the ability to run his own company right now. He is at the top of the game. Is it going to be like that forever? Right? Is it going to be, no matter how hard you try, you may not be in that top dog spot forever. And then people like Hassan Piker. I'm doing a lot of inside streaming knowledge, so if you don't know who I'm talking about, I'm sorry. A guy on the left named Hassan Piker used to get high streaming numbers. Now he's not, and he's not doing too well because he's not making as much money as he used to. And I think Tim, who's been smart enough to see trends, may see, hey, in within 5 years, this medium is not going to be as strong as it is right now. And it behooves me to get in with somebody like the Daily Wire who have backing and money, so I don't have to worry about this. To know where the paycheck is coming is a huge deal for a lot of content creators, which is why they jump at the advertisements. And if you advertise, it doesn't mean you're a sellout. It just means that you're finding a way to pay your bills. So Tim could be going to the Daily Wire. Nobody's going to know. And just understand, the Israeli flag was a troll job. His statement was a troll job. If you're watching Timcast tonight, it's going to be a troll job because that's what Tim likes to do. Anytime there's a controversy, he likes to mine the hell out of that thing because why not? You make $5,000 today. I think he made probably $5,000 just today in Twitter revenue. Every time he tweeted something, everybody's like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? They're trying to decode it like it's the Da Vinci Code. But it's interesting that this dropped because Tim has been making it known that the hours are long. He had that breakdown earlier, a couple weeks before the election where he was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I don't like doing this anymore. Selling all that stuff to the Daily Wire and just becoming a talent again could look really, really good in his eyes. Like, hey, I don't have to do this anymore. It's great. So we'll see. But that's my thoughts on the Daily Wire Timcast saga. Will it happen? He could announce it at AmFest next week, at the end of this week. He could announce it January 1st. He can announce it January 10th. But it's interesting how everybody in the alternative space is like, oh, yeah, well, we've all known this for a while.